welcome to Ponder and Practice, the podcast for professional, high-achieving women who are ready to swap hustle for harmony, exhaustion for energy, and pain for power. I'm Dr. Katherine Hoffman, and I help value-driven, ambitious women achieve their goals by setting artful, integrity-aligned boundaries that create space for meaningful work and sincere connection. So, are you ready to discover the power of no? Well, let's get started. Hey there, friends, and welcome to another episode of Ponder and Practice. Thank you so much for joining me here today. It is both a pleasure and an honor to share this time with you. It is certainly not lost on me that you could be spending your time doing any number of other things, watching a million other things, listening to, there are I don't know, million, gajillion other podcasts out there, and so I really appreciate your being here and taking the time to listen, and also I appreciate your taking the time to invest in yourself. This is really designed to be a resource and space to provide information that you can take back and apply to your own life to make it better, to improve your relationships, to improve your experience, and put you in a place to live life from a place of intention rather than by default. So I also super appreciate your taking the time to do that and take that on and really invest in your own life experience, because this really does trickle out, and there's a ripple effect that happens when we each start to live with more intentionality, and when we each start to show up for ourselves so that we can better show up for the world around us. So thanks for doing that. Today I am talking about how to reconcile the fact that setting boundaries can feel like you're severing connection sometimes, but in fact, setting good boundaries enhances your connections with other people. It enhances your relationships and your ability to show up in ways for other folks that are most meaningful, both for you and for the other person. A lot of times when I start talking about boundaries with folks, typically with women, but not always, or folks who identify as women, they have a thought pattern that says, oh, if I say no, then that means that the other person will think that I don't care. Or if I say no, that means that I am dropping my responsibility and not showing up for the things that I'm supposed to. Or if I say no, then people aren't going to like me because they will think that I'm mean and rude. Or if I say no, that means that, I can't say that I'm a kind person anymore because I'm supposed to be all things to all people in my life. And I totally get where these thoughts come from. I understand completely, and I have zero judgment about any of them. I do recognize, however, that they are false. And in truth, what happens when you start to set artful boundaries is that your relationships improve tremendously. Not only that, but your close relationships will improve, but also the respect that you garner from the people around you increases tremendously. And the trust that other people place in you becomes so much bigger. So it's tough, though, to reconcile. I can tell you that all day long, but until you can see it and practice it and understand what that means at a visceral level, it's a really hard thing to take on, because that fear of kind of losing your identity as someone who is, quote, kind, or someone who's, quote, nice, or, this is the kind of woman that you're supposed to be, that's really tough. That's really threatening. And I completely understand the fear around that. So what I want to do today is talk through why exactly it is that setting good boundaries really does support connection and really does support building up meaningful relationships, and really does improve your credibility in pretty much every area of your life. The first thing is that it comes down to energy and being able to be present in a quality way with someone else. So if, we all have a certain amount of energetic resources available to us at any given moment in time. So by this, I mean physical energy, emotional energy, mental energy. At any given moment, we have so much available to us, and we have to decide, or we get to decide, how we want to use that energy. If you're not setting boundaries, if you're not saying no, you are not deciding where you're using your energy. You are in effect saying, well, I'll just give it to like whoever comes first. First come, first serve, that's who gets my resources and energy. And I assert that that's not a very effective or efficient way to go about living a life that is by design. I don't know if you've ever been a time that is a little bit more stressful than regular life. I mean, we're in COVID right now, so you have been in a time that's more stressful than regular life. All right, let's be honest about this. But I mean more of like a period, maybe a few months, maybe a couple years, where it was just like things were super intense for a while. And the example that I always use is when I was in med school. And this was a time when because I opted into med school, because for me it was really important to pursue my doctorate and check that box off, and figure out what my career options would be after that, right? I decided to allocate pretty much all of my energy to that pursuit, which meant that when I got home and when I was talking, you know, like if I would get home after a long day or whatever, exhausted physically, mentally, and emotionally, and something was going on with my family at home, I didn't have a whole lot of resources to deal with it. And so, you know, my husband and I had a lot of conversations about how are we going to navigate this so that we make it through on the other end. And to be honest with you, there were a fair few moments where I was like, I don't think we're going to make it through to the other end. Just because I was giving so much to showing up at school, and that was really, in terms of my values and my aspirations, that was the most important thing. And so everything that came after that, I was like, you know what, if you're still here after I finish, great, and if you're not, you know, that sucks, but we're gonna have to figure that out. We made it through, we're still together, it's fine, but you know, there were definitely moments when I would get home and I was like, I don't have the energy to be helpful to you in any way. Like, I have to tend to myself 100%. And so we all have these moments, and by moments I mean stretches of time when this happens, when there are some things that are really stressful happening that just are, whether we opted in for them like I did in med school, or whether they kind of happen upon us, like if you have someone in your family who's ill chronically, whether it's COVID, you know, whatever is going on. The thing here is that, you know, what am I saying? So that's an example of sort of, in my example, I decided I was going to allocate my energetic resources to school. That was a conscious, on purpose decision that I made. A lot of folks don't make that decision, and so it ends up showing up like getting more and more and more to do at work and taking more and more things on, and then, but like not being intentional about that. And so over time then realizing like, oh shoot, I've been spending all of my energy at work, I don't have any for at home. Or vice versa, if there's a lot of stuff going on at home and you're just taking more and more and more on and aren't sure how to build a container for yourself so that you can survive and to even thrive, then you're showing up to work and it's like, oh, I don't have anything left to give here because I've given it all at home. And again, I just want to say, like, I have no judgment about any of this. So if you're listening and you're like, oh shoot, that's totally me and that's really bad. No, it's not. I talk about it in this way to help shine a light and bring awareness to the fact that you get to choose. You get to choose where your energy goes. And even in the most dire of circumstances, you still get to choose. And, you know, sometimes you kind of gotta slog through most of it. And also there are ways to build some boundaries for yourself, to create a container for yourself so that you can have the energy that you need to do the things that are most important to you. So that's the first thing. You have to decide where you want to allocate your energetic resources, because if you're saying yes to everything and draining them on whoever happens to show up first or whatever happens to show up first, you're not going to have that energy to devote to the things and people that you really care about most, that really are aligned with your values. The second thing that happens is that if you're someone who says yes all the time, invariably there are gonna be times when you drop the ball, because nobody can do it all, unfortunately. I know, I wish that was different. I'm sure you wish that was different. Unfortunately, that is just the way it is. You cannot do everything. And so if you're saying yes to all the things all the time, you're gonna fall short, and you're not gonna be able to show up with the excellent service and the excellent presence that you really want to be showing up with. People have trouble setting boundaries because they genuinely want to help, right? Like, you genuinely want to show up for that person. You genuinely want to, like, support whoever it is and, you know, provide assistance for whatever it is. And so I want to call out that, like, this more often than not comes from a place of wanting to excel at service in whatever context of life. But as you say yes to all the things, you start dropping balls, and then you can't say yes to things that maybe are prior commitments, that are more aligned with your own personal values, that are really within integrity in your heart. And so the trust in your life becomes eroded slowly and over time. Or maybe all at once, I don't know. It depends a great deal on the person and the situation. Self-trust starts to erode because many women will take on everything for everyone else, and they will drop and drop and drop their own stuff. So one of the things that I say in my marketing is, like, I want to help you get on your own priority list, because you deserve to be there. You deserve to take care of yourself. You deserve to be able to stop working at, 5, 6:30, 7, whatever it is. Stop working, get off your computer, and go take a walk. You deserve to have, good quality food in your home that you have had delivered or brought home from the grocery store, right? You deserve to be able to spend time moving your body in a way that your body likes to move, that feels really good and is healthy and supportive for you. You deserve to be on your own priority list, right? So, as you say yes to all of the things around you and you drop yourself off your list yet again, you train yourself that you aren't trustworthy. You can't trust yourself to show up for the things that you said that you were going to do for yourself. As your trust for being able to show up for yourself erodes, you take yourself out of your power. If you can't, stand up and say, you know what, I'm going to do XYZ thing, I'm going to show up for it, it's going to be great. If you can't say that with confidence and know that, like, yeah, come hell or high water, this is happening for me, you're not in a place of power. You're not in a place of empowerment and knowing that, yeah, you've got your own back. You have got this shit handled. Excuse my language, but I mean, that really is the best way I know to say it. Because when you trust yourself, when you know you can rely on yourself, it doesn't matter what comes up. Like, you can deal, you can figure out a way, you can make it happen. And not make it happen from a place of exhaustion and, oh shoot, I gotta go do this thing, but make it happen from, oh yeah, I got this. Totally. No problem. Like, I know how to make this work, and I know how to orchestrate my life so that it is as effective as it can be for both myself and the people around me, right? Those are very different places to be saying yes from. So that's the first piece that happens. When you start setting good boundaries and you start saying no, and you can say no to yourself too. You can say no on purpose to yourself. If your friends all have a running group and you're like, no, maybe you've been telling yourself like, oh yeah, I should get out there and run, and you hate running, Stop. Like, say no to that. Say no to that for yourself. That's totally fine. And do some exploration and figure out, like, well, what else could you do that's movement that you actually enjoy? Say yes to that, right? As you say no to something that doesn't really align with you, like if you say no to marathon training, you're gonna gain so many hours, let me tell you, from my own experience, plus the judgment of not showing up for those runs, plus the not suffering, but like potentially the suffering and discomfort of doing that, plus any anxiety you have around it, like all this emotional burden that you're carrying. All that space gets freed up, and then you get to say yes to, oh, well, I really love riding my bike. And then you show up for yourself and you learn, like, oh, right, I can trust myself. Yeah, biking really is better for me. This feels really good, and it, like, I'm not trying to strong arm myself into doing something I don't enjoy. Like, I just naturally, you know, at a certain time of day, find myself on my bike and take a ride, and you know, my body feels better, my mind feels better, etc., etc., etc. So setting good boundaries helps you reestablish a relationship of trust with yourself. It's a big deal because, like I said, this puts you back in a place of power, this puts you in the driver's seat of your life, and this puts you in a position of being able to know whatever happens, you have got your own back, and you know, or you're willing to experiment with, and that's totally fine too, but you know that you're going to figure out how to make the things that matter most to you happen. So that's one thing. The second thing that happens is that other people will trust you more. And maybe this is just me, but if I can pretty much pinpoint folks who are people pleasers, like they're not that difficult to spot. Most women are. And you know, at any rate, I don't trust these people very much. Not that I don't respect them, or not that, you know, I don't think that they wouldn't show up if push came to shove, but I can tell you from my own experience that people pleasers will not always be upfront and honest. And that's, I think, what I'm trying to get at here, because they want to make you feel comfortable. And again, I don't have any judgment about this at all. So, but the fact of the matter is that if you self-identify as a people pleaser, there's no shame in that, but it comes from a good place. It comes from a sweet, loving, caring place, because genuinely and truly from the depths of your heart, you really want everyone to be, you know, in a place of feeling good, and you want everybody around you to have what they want and to have what they need. There's nothing wrong with that. There's nothing wrong with that impulse. Trust with other folks gets eroded, though, when this desire to have everyone else be happy and to have everyone else get their needs met ends up leading to some less than full truths about what you're capable of providing. I know folks who overpromise and underdeliver every time, and it erodes that trust with other folks. And so that ability to have a really deep, meaningful connection with someone, it's harder if you're looking at someone who has an experience and, you know, maybe you dropped a ball, maybe you said you do some big lofty thing and then couldn't for whatever reason. That erodes the trust. So you set a good boundary. You learn how to set really beautiful and elegant, artful boundaries that build up that container that support other folks trusting you. I'm tooting my own horn a little bit here, but I have been called many things. Some people have called me harsh. I've been called intense, intimidating, you know, like too sensitive, too rigid, whatever it is. But I have also pretty much always been called honest and upfront. And even if I am harsh, people can trust that I'm saying what I mean. And if you've listened to this podcast, probably you have garnered that as well from your experience of listening. And that's that's what setting good boundaries will do for you, is that, and you don't have to be mean about it. And I have rightfully so been called mean at times, and I apologize in those instances and try to come back better the next time. But you don't have to be mean about it, but being upfront and honest and clear in a way that says, this is simply what it is, without judgment. I use a formula for creating, quote, stock phrases with folks that they can just use when they're in the heat of the moment, right? Because typically that's where people struggle the most, is when they're in the heat of the moment and they don't know what to say. And so they're just like, okay, sure, I'll do it, just because it's an uncomfortable situation. They aren't familiar with saying no. They aren't comfortable with saying no. They don't have the words that they need to get out of it in a way that feels genuine for them. And so I help folks come up with stock phrases that they can just pull out and use. And the way that I coach folks around this is, it's a formula. It's positive aspect or gratitude plus nope, plus an alternative if you want to offer one. So this is a way of setting a boundary that engenders trust and really lets the other person know, I care about you, right? If you're a self-identified people pleaser and you tremendously want to be helpful and you tremendously want to help that other person's needs get met, this is how you do it, while also saying, I can't take this on right now. So an example could be something like, oh my gosh, thank you so much for asking me. I really appreciate that you thought of me. You know, my plate is super full right now. Have you talked to Amanda? She's super knowledgeable about that, and I'm sure would have some really great resources for you if she can't actually help you herself. Right? That's a way of saying what you mean in a way that is kind, compassionate, helpful, and you slid a no right in there. You said, nope, can't do it right now. Thanks for asking, but move along, sir. And again, I'm making light of it, but the more you can communicate in this way with folks, and the more you can be clear and upfront, and this is what setting an artful boundary is, the more the people around you will know, one, yes, you do in fact still care, and yes, you do in fact still want to help them, and you're not willing to sacrifice yourself for what they need. And they'll know that, you know, as you learn to say no to certain things and say no to the things that aren't in alignment with your integrity and values, when you say yes, you are all in, 100%. You are not going to drop that ball because you have done that work of figuring out what is in alignment, what is not in alignment. And, you know, the more you say no, the more people know that when you say yes, you really mean it. So that engenders trust. That engenders in whatever context, a sense of, well, you know, okay, like maybe they won't be able to help me themselves, but I know that they care, and I know that if they do say yes, they're gonna deliver. They're gonna show up and show out and come with some really great excellence to whatever it is that's going on. So that's the second thing that happens. So the first thing we talked about is energy. Setting good boundaries helps you protect your energy and deploy it in a way that is most effective for you and your values. The second thing that happens is trust. And as you learn to set artful boundaries, you rebuild trust with yourself and put yourself into your personal power on purpose. Can I say more P's there? And then also you start to develop trust with the people around you because they start to see, oh, this person really does care. Maybe they see you starting to take care of yourself. They see you starting to get yourself on your own priority list. And we know, like, if someone else will show up for themselves, they'll probably, if they say yes to me, they will also show up for me. They keep their commitments no matter what. And so, like, that piece happens. And then also you start to build trust with other folks because, one, you're not taking on too much and dropping a ball or two, which is fine. Also, like, it's okay to drop a ball. I don't have judgment about that either. And sometimes, like, it happens to all of us. But also, when you say yes, you're all in. They know that if you say yes to something, you will show up. You are committed to, you are just as committed to your yes as you are to your no. If that makes any sense. Hopefully it does. So yeah, those are the two main things that happen when you start setting really good boundaries. This, to be completely honest with you, as you maybe could tell from the way that I'm talking through this, maybe you can't, which would be awesome. But this is a concept I have a good handle on internally, but I'm still thinking through and kind of feeling through and processing the best way to communicate it so that it is supportive to folks who are not, in my mind, everyone in the world. And it's challenging to talk about in generalities because in as much as there are some really commonly held beliefs that prevent folks from setting boundaries for themselves, the specifics and the particulars vary. And so, you know, when I'm talking one-on-one with someone, I get super deep with folks. We kind of get to the kernel of the issue, and we're able to sort of tease out what specifically here is holding you back. Like, what's the thing that you're most afraid of happening if you say no? And maybe that's a good way, a good thing that I can provide you as I'm wrapping up here is that, you know, what if you consider, like, why are all the reasons that you can't say no? What are all the reasons you can't set boundaries for yourself? And by can't, I mean, like, what are the beliefs that you have been taught over the course of your life that you've taken on that say, oh, like, I can't say no, gosh, like, I have to be of service, or I have to be nice, or I have to, whatever it is. Really consider that and think it through. And it may not all come up at once. Like, I'm sort of planting a seed here, and maybe there are one or two things that come up to you right away and you think, oh my gosh, totally on board with that. And I get it. And it may take a few days of sort of pondering this and having it in the back of your mind before you come up with, oh, right, I see what's going on here. But if you set this intention and think about this question, you will come to some clarity about what are the beliefs that I hold about why setting a boundary or why saying no is going to disconnect me in a fundamental way from my relationships. And I encourage you to think through also what's the worst case scenario. This is scary for a lot of folks, understandably. I have a colleague, and I was troubleshooting some stuff with her, and she said, oh yeah, she was working with someone and all that they were talking about was like something super simple. This person was married and there was an issue around sleeping arrangements, and that's all my colleague talked about with the person that she was working with. And then it ended up, as soon as this person decided that they were gonna set a boundary and take care of themselves, they ended up leaving their partner and getting divorced. So it is not lost on me that boundary setting can have tremendous consequences. Really big, really huge. I get it. I also know that women especially tend to sacrifice themselves because they don't want to rock the boat. And they don't know that they can handle life if they set a good boundary. And I am here to tell you that you absolutely can. And in fact, over the long run, your life is gonna get so much better. So much better. Like, by default, it will happen. At any rate, I digress a little bit. But in terms of thinking about your relationships and boundary setting, it's not always that dramatic. I'm just saying, like, I understand that it can be very intense to game out, like, what is the worst case scenario if you start to set boundaries with folks, especially the people closest in your life to you. But gaming out what that worst case scenario is, sometimes the worst case scenario comes down to an issue of your identity. You've identified, your ego and your sense of self is hitched to, well, I'm a nice person, I can't say no. Well, why are those two things mutually exclusive? Why can't you be a nice person and also say no? So I encourage you to think that through and kind of get into the weeds a little bit with it and figure out, where is this coming from and what's the kernel of the issue there? Because once you can get to that and you have you have that understanding, that deep understanding of yourself, and you also have a logical understanding of, well, actually, yeah, interpersonal dynamics, the way that they work is that, other people respond to my behaviors, and other people know what to expect from me based on my behaviors, and so that means that my connections will be stronger. I understand cognitively that, I only have so much energy, right? Like if you think about gas in your tank, if you only have one full tank of gas and don't have money for a fill up, where are you going to go? You can go all kinds of places. Are you going to go drive in the desert for days and days and days where there's not a gas station? Probably not. And so thinking about setting boundaries as like your energy is refillable, but it's not endless on any given day. Like cognitively you understand that, and you also have an understanding of yourself and why boundaries are challenging for you. So you can do some internal alchemy, as it were, and turn around and say, okay, well, this is what I need to start doing. This is how I need to start moving on this so that I can deploy my resources in a way that is helpful for me and also lets the people around me know that they matter to me and I want to show up for them, and I am showing up for them in a way that is significant for all parties involved, and building up that trust and putting myself in a place of personal power and in charge of my own life, which you are, by the way. Even if you don't think you are, you are. So act like it. And I'm sensitive to the fact that might sound harsh, but I mean, I love doing this work with folks because of the fact that as they start setting boundaries, they really do realize, like, oh shoot, I am in charge of this. Like, wait a minute, why was I not doing this before? At any rate, it's really beautiful to see that shift and transformation happen with folks, and to have folks heal from a very deep, entrenched place, and come out of that space of feeling like they're completely disempowered, that they have no options, no choices, and come out of that and realize, no, I have a lot of choices, I have a lot of options, and I get to say, I get to decide, and there's nothing wrong with that, because I'm a human person. I deserve to take up space, I deserve to be on my own priority list, etc., etc., etc. At any rate, hopefully that all makes sense to you. Like I said, I have recorded this episode, I lost count, because every time I started talking about it, I was like, no, that's not quite right, no, that's not quite right, no, that's not quite right, and at a certain point, you just gotta do it and get it out and put it into the world. So that's what I'm doing here, and so I hope that this makes sense, and just because I cannot say it enough, there's no shame to be had here with any of this at all. Absolutely no shame. And so if you have been listening and like feeling kind of dinged a little bit, certainly is not my intention. And also those dings that you're feeling emotionally, if you are feeling them, is a good sign that this is a place where you can explore and have tremendous healing. And it's not going to be this way forever, I promise. And you are fully capable, and you are so powerful, and you're doing so good. You're doing so good. It's really challenging to do this human thing and to live in a human body on the planet Earth as it is right now. And so I have nothing but love and care and compassion for you, and you're doing great. You might not feel like it, you might not see it, but I promise you, you are. So keep on hanging in there. And like I said, if you are feeling like, ooh, God, ugh, it's a little close there, Catherine, like getting a little close in there, it's a good sign that it's, time to do some exploration. Certainly I'm available. This is the work that I do with clients, and I'm happy to work with you. All you need to do is go over to artfulboundaries.com, and you can read more about my approach, the steps I take with clients. You can schedule a complimentary consultation call there. You can also go to ponderandpractice.com/schedule just to go ahead and schedule a consultation. So many options to get in touch and get on the schedule. And yeah, it takes some practice, it takes some time, and it's really not nothing. It really is not nothing. So, all right, friends, hang in there, take good care, stay safe, stay well, and, use your no on purpose. You're worth it. All right, until next time. Bye.